My son emptied our life savings for his ex-cheating wife. My 13-year-old grandson made them pay. The pause lasted too long. When someone takes that long to answer a simple question, you already know you won't like what's coming. Have you ever had to watch someone you love walk straight into the same fire that burned them before? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family, enjoy the story. I had just made the biggest mistake of my life, and no one knew except him. My 13-year-old grandson Marcus stood in my kitchen doorway, holding bank statements that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my own son. The numbers didn't lie, $847,000 gone. Every penny your grandpa and I saved over 43 years of marriage, vanished into the hands of a woman who had already broken my boy's heart once before. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you handed them the keys to your entire future? Have you ever watched your own child make a decision so foolish it made your chest tight with panic? Do you know someone who's fallen for the same person twice, even after betrayal? Here's the problem: sometimes the people we love most become the very ones who hurt us deepest. And sometimes, it takes a child to show grown folks what they refuse to see. What happened next would change our family forever. A 13-year-old boy was about to teach his father and a manipulative woman a lesson they'd never forget. But first, let me take you back to where this nightmare began. If you've ever wondered how far a grandmother would go to protect her family's future, and how smart a kid can be when adults lose their minds, stay with me. Hit that like button if you're ready for a story that'll make you question everything you think you know about family loyalty. Now, let me take you back to that cold February morning in Ohio, when my son Daniel walked through my front door with stars in his eyes and destruction in his pocket. The phone rang at 6 in the morning, and Lord knows nothing good ever comes from calls that early. I was already up, making coffee in my yellow kitchen, watching the snow dust our backyard through the window. 43 years in this house, and I could count on one hand the number of times someone called before sunrise with good news. Mama? Daniel's voice cracked through the receiver like he was 16 again, not 38. Baby, what's wrong? I set my coffee mug down harder than I meant to. The ceramic clicked against the counter, sharp and final. Nothing's wrong. Everything's right, actually. He was breathing heavy, like he'd been running. Lila's back, Mama. She's back, and we're getting married again. The words hit me like ice water. Lila. The same Lila who'd left him broken and bitter 6 years ago. The same woman who'd taken half his construction equipment and his dignity when she ran off to Florida with that insurance salesman. The same Lila who never once called to check on Marcus, her own stepson, not even on his birthday. Daniel, honey, slow down. What do you mean she's back? She found God, Mama. Real faith. She's been living in Georgia, working with a ministry, helping troubled families. She wants to make things right. His words tumbled out fast, desperate. She needs help getting back on her feet, and I want to help her. I closed my eyes and leaned against the kitchen counter. The same counter where I'd held my grandson Marcus while he cried about his daddy's broken heart. The same spot where Daniel had sworn he'd never let that woman hurt him again. Son, remember what she did to you. Remember how you couldn't eat for weeks. Remember how Marcus asked me why his stepmom didn't love him anymore. That was different, Mama. People change. She's changed. People change. Lord, if I had $1 for every time someone said that about the exact same person who'd already shown them who they really were, I could have retired in comfort instead of watching my retirement money disappear. Where is she now? Atlanta. She's got some debts from when she was struggling, but once we get those cleared up, we can start fresh. Really fresh this time. My heart dropped into my stomach. What kind of debts, Daniel? The pause lasted too long. When someone takes that long to answer a simple question, you already know you won't like what's coming. Nothing we can't handle together. Maybe 40, 50,000. But Mama, she's worth it. She's really changed. $50,000. I thought about the savings account your grandpa and I had built penny by penny. His overtime shifts at the steel plant. My weekend jobs cleaning houses for white families who paid me just enough to make it worth the bus ride. Every vacation we didn't take. Every restaurant meal we skipped. Every small luxury we denied ourselves so we could have something to leave our family. Daniel, baby, that's a lot of money. I know, Mama. But I've got some savings, and if I need to, I can take a loan against the house. The house. The same house where Marcus lived. Where my grandson had finally found stability after his mother died in that car accident when he was 8. The same boy who'd already lost too much was about to lose the roof over his head because his father couldn't see past a pretty face and a sob story. Have you told Marcus about this? Another pause. Shorter this time, but just as telling. Not yet. But he'll understand. Kids are flexible. Kids are flexible. As if losing your home and watching your father make the same mistake twice was just something a 13-year-old should bend around like a tree in the wind. I heard footsteps upstairs. Marcus getting ready for school. That boy never missed a day, never complained about walking 3 blocks to the bus stop even when Ohio winter bit through his jacket. He'd been the man of the house in ways his father hadn't, keeping track of bills, reminding Daniel about parent-teacher conferences, even learning to cook basic meals when Daniel worked double shifts. Daniel, I want you to think real hard about this. Think about Marcus. Think about everything you've built since she left. I have thought about it, Mama. This is right. This feels right. That's what scared me most. It felt right to him. Love, or whatever he thought this was, had made my smart, hard-working son stupid. And stupid decisions have a way of destroying more than just the person making them. When are you seeing her again? Next weekend. I'm driving down to Georgia. She wants to show me the ministry work she's been doing. Maybe you could keep Marcus? Of course. Daniel would chase his second chance at heartbreak, and I'd watch his son try to pretend it didn't hurt. Again. Bring her here first, I said. If she's really changed, she won't mind facing the family she left behind. Mama, I don't think that's. Daniel. I used the voice that had stopped him from running into traffic when he was 5. If this woman wants back into our family, she faces all of us. Including the grandson she abandoned. The silence stretched between us like a held breath. Outside, I watched Mrs. Patterson from next door scraping ice off her windshield, probably heading to her job at the bank. Normal people doing normal things while my world tilted sideways. Okay, Daniel finally said. I'll bring her by next Sunday. After church. After church. As if sitting in a pew would somehow sanctify whatever foolishness he was planning. Good. And Daniel? Don't you dare touch any of that savings until we've all had a chance to meet this changed woman of yours. I hung up before he could promise me something we both knew he might not keep. Upstairs, I heard Marcus's alarm clock go off. Same time every morning, 7:15 sharp. That boy had more discipline than his father, more sense than most adults I knew. As I climbed the stairs to make sure he was up for school, I wondered how much he'd already figured out about his daddy's latest disaster. The thing about smart kids is they hear everything. They see everything. And sometimes, they understand things better than the grown folks who think they're protecting them. Marcus was already dressed, sitting on his bed with his backpack packed. His dark eyes met mine through his bedroom doorway, and something in them told me he'd heard every word of that phone call. Morning, Grandma. Morning, baby. You sleep okay? He nodded, but his jaw was set in a way that reminded me of his grandfather. Stubborn. Determined. Ready to fight when fighting was necessary. Grandma? His voice was steady, older than 13. Is Daddy making another mistake? Out of the mouths of babes. This child had watched his father grieve, watched him slowly heal, watched him finally smile again. And now he was watching it all get ready to crumble. I don't know yet, Marcus. But we're going to find out. Have you ever had to watch someone you love walk straight into the same fire that burned them before? Comment below and tell me about a time you saw disaster coming but couldn't stop it. Sunday came too fast and not fast enough. I spent the week praying Daniel would come to his senses, but when his truck pulled into my driveway at 2 o'clock sharp, I knew my prayers had fallen on deaf ears. Through my living room window, I watched him hop out like a teenager picking up his prom date. Then she stepped out of the passenger side. Lila looked exactly the same, except for the cross hanging around her neck and the way she'd toned down her makeup. Still beautiful in that dangerous way that makes smart men stupid. Still moving like she knew every eye was on her. But now she had this soft, humble act going, head tilted just so, hands clasped in front of her like she was walking into church instead of the home she'd helped destroy. Marcus was doing homework at the kitchen table when they knocked. I watched my grandson's pencil stop moving across his math worksheet. His whole body went still, like a deer sensing danger in the woods. "You stay put," I told him. "Let the grown folks handle this first." But when I opened that front door, it was Marcus who spoke first. "Hello, Lila." His voice was flat, empty of the warmth he showed everyone else. This child had learned early how to protect himself from people who didn't deserve his trust. "Marcus." Lila's voice went high and sweet, like sugar dissolved in poison. "Look how tall you've gotten. Come give me a hug." Marcus didn't move. Just looked at her with those dark eyes that missed nothing. "I'm good," he said. "I'll stay here with Grandma." Daniel's face went red. "Marcus, show some respect. Lila's going to be part of our family again." "She was part of our family before," Marcus replied, still not moving. "Didn't work out so well." The tension in my living room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Lila's smile flickered for just a second, long enough for me to see the flash of irritation before she caught herself. "Children need time to adjust," she said, reaching for Daniel's hand. "I understand." But I saw how her fingers dug into his palm. How her jaw tightened when Marcus turned back to his homework like she wasn't worth his attention. "Mama, can we sit down? Lila wants to explain everything." We settled in the living room, me in Grandpa's old recliner, Daniel and Lila on the couch holding hands like teenagers, Marcus at the kitchen table with his ears wide open. The afternoon light came through my curtains soft and warm, but the atmosphere felt cold as January. "Mrs. Johnson," Lila began, "I know I hurt your family. I know I made mistakes that caused pain, especially to Daniel and Marcus. But I've spent these past years working on myself, finding my faith, learning what real love means. Real love." I wanted to ask her what real love had to do with cleaning out her husband's bank account, but I held my tongue. "Tell me about this ministry work," I said instead. Her eyes lit up. "It's beautiful work. We help families in crisis, domestic violence situations, addiction recovery, financial counseling. I've been living simply, giving back to the community, really focusing on service over self." Service over self. The words rolled off her tongue smooth as butter, but something about the way she said them felt rehearsed. Like she'd practiced this speech in front of a mirror. "And these debts you mentioned to Daniel?" Daniel jumped in before she could answer. "It's from when she was struggling, Mama. Before she found her path. She helped some families who couldn't pay her back, and now she's behind on her own bills. Helping families who couldn't pay her back. In my experience, when someone's story sounds too noble to be true, it usually is." "How much exactly?" I kept my voice gentle, but my eyes stayed on Lila's face. "It's really not that much," she said, looking down at her hands. "Maybe 60,000. But Daniel and I, we're going to handle it together. As a team. 60,000. Not the 40 or 50 Daniel had mentioned on the phone. Funny how numbers had a way of growing when the truth started coming out. "And what happens after the debts are paid?" I asked. "We start over," Daniel said, squeezing her hand. "Buy a little place in Georgia, maybe near the ministry. Marcus could have a fresh start too. New school, new friends. From the kitchen, I heard Marcus's pencil snap. Marcus likes his school, I said quietly. He likes his friends. He likes his home. Kids adjust, Lila said, and there was something sharp under her sweet tone. Sometimes change is exactly what a family needs. That's when I knew for certain. This woman hadn't changed at all. She was still the same person who'd convinced my son to put her name on his truck title, then sold it while he was at work. Still the same person who'd promised Marcus she'd take him to Disney World for his birthday, then disappeared 2 days before the trip. But this time, she wasn't just after his heart or his truck. She was after everything. Our savings. Our home. Our family's future. And my son was too blind with what he thought was love to see the trap closing around all of us. Well, I said, standing up. I suppose we'll see how things go. Daniel smiled like I'd given them my blessing. Lila smiled like she'd already won. But I caught Marcus watching from the kitchen, and the look in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. This boy had been taking notes. And unlike his father, Marcus remembered exactly who Lila really was. What would you do if you saw your family walking into the same trap twice? Have you ever watched someone you love choose the wrong person over and over? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I have a feeling some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. As they walked to the door, Lila whispered something in Daniel's ear that made him laugh. But I noticed how she glanced back at Marcus one more time, and how her smile disappeared the second she thought no one was looking. That woman had come back for a reason. And it wasn't love. By Thursday, Daniel had stopped returning my phone calls. Marcus pretended not to notice, but I caught him checking his phone more often than usual, waiting for texts that weren't coming. When your own daddy starts ignoring you because his girlfriend doesn't want family interference, it cuts deep. Especially when you're 13 and smart enough to understand exactly what's happening. He's not coming for dinner, is he? Marcus asked around 5 o'clock. He was sitting at the kitchen table, homework spread out in front of him, but his math book hadn't been turned in 20 minutes. Probably not, baby. Marcus nodded like he'd expected this. Like disappointment was just another item on his daily schedule. Want to order pizza instead? Extra cheese, the way you like it? Sure. He closed his math book without finishing the problems. Grandma, can I ask you something? Always. How much money do we have? Like, really have? The question hit me sideways. Most kids his age worried about video games and girlfriends. Marcus was worried about our family's financial survival. Why are you asking? Because I heard Daddy on the phone yesterday when he picked me up from school. He was talking to the bank about the house. About equity loans and credit lines and stuff. My blood went cold. Daniel had promised he wouldn't touch the savings without talking to me. But he hadn't promised anything about finding other ways to fund his second chance at heartbreak. What exactly did you hear? Marcus looked down at his hands. He said he needed access to funds for a family emergency. Said his son's future depended on it. His son's future. Daniel was using Marcus as justification for the very thing that would destroy Marcus's security. Did he mention Lila? Not by name. But he kept saying, we, and, us, and, our plans. And when he hung up, he was smiling like he'd won something. I felt my chest tighten. Daniel had found another way. Some bank, somewhere, was going to give him access to money he couldn't afford to lose, and he was going to hand it over to a woman who'd already proven she was poison. Marcus, listen to me. No matter what your daddy does with banks or loans or credit, this house is safe. It's in my name and your granddaddy's name, and no one can take it without both signatures. But Daddy could lose his house, couldn't he? Smart boy. Too smart. Maybe. But that's his choice to make. Marcus was quiet for a long time, staring out the kitchen window at the backyard where snow was starting to fall again. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Older. Determined. Grandma, I want to know everything about Lila. Everything she did before, everything she's doing now. I want to understand what we're really dealing with. Marcus. I'm not a little kid anymore. I remember when she left. I remember Daddy crying in his truck because he thought I couldn't see him. I remember her promising to take me places and never showing up. His hands were clenched into fists on the table. If she's really changed, then knowing the truth won't hurt. But if she hasn't. He didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. This boy was ready to fight for his family in ways the grown folks weren't. What are you thinking, baby? I'm thinking grown-ups sometimes can't see straight when they're in love. But kids remember everything. And kids can find out things adults don't think to look for. The way he said it sent a chill down my spine. Not because I was afraid of what he might do, but because I was proud of it. This 13-year-old boy had more sense than his 38-year-old father. What kind of things? Marcus pulled out his phone, the basic model Daniel had gotten him for emergencies. Lila said she's been doing ministry work in Georgia, right? Helping families, living simply, finding God? That's what she said. Well, I found her Facebook page. My heart stopped. Marcus. Grandma, look. He turned the phone toward me, and there was Lila's face smiling back from a screen full of photos. But these weren't pictures of ministry work or simple living. They were pictures of restaurants. Expensive ones. Pictures of her in new clothes, new jewelry, manicured nails holding drinks that cost more than Marcus's school lunch money. Pictures of her at casinos, at parties, at the beach with friends who looked like they'd never missed a meal or worried about a bill. These are all from the past 6 months, Marcus said quietly. While she was supposedly finding God and living simply. I scrolled through the photos with shaking hands. Lila at a blackjack table in Atlantic City. Lila in a dress that cost more than I spent on groceries in 2 months. Lila laughing with friends at what looked like a very expensive resort. There's more, Marcus said. She's not even living in Georgia anymore. Her location tags show Florida, Nevada, California. She's been traveling all over, staying in nice hotels, eating at fancy places. My grandson had done in 20 minutes what his father couldn't see in 6 years of knowing this woman. Marcus had looked past the words and the promises and the cross necklace to find the truth. Does your daddy know about this? I tried to show him yesterday. He said social media doesn't tell the whole story. Said maybe these were old photos, or maybe she was just enjoying life before getting serious about her faith. Enjoying life. On whose money? And if she was living it up for the past 6 months, where were these ministry debts really coming from? Grandma, I think she's lying about everything. I think she heard Daddy was doing better, maybe heard about our savings, and came back for round 2. Round 2. This boy understood exactly what we were dealing with. What do you want to do about it? Marcus looked at me with eyes that belonged on someone twice his age. I want to protect our family. All of it. Even Daddy, even if he's too in love to protect himself. That's a big responsibility for someone your age. Someone has to do it. And the grown-ups aren't doing their jobs. Have you ever been 13 and wiser than the adults around you? Tell me in the comments about a time when you had to be the adult in your family situation. Marcus was right. The grown-ups weren't doing their jobs. But this kid was about to do something that would change everything. Friday evening, I was washing dishes when Marcus came into the kitchen carrying his laptop and a notebook full of handwriting. The look on his face reminded me of his grandfather when he was working on the car engine, focused, determined, ready to take apart whatever wasn't working right. Grandma, I need to show you something else. I dried my hands and sat down next to him at the table. His laptop screen was open to what looked like a dating website. Marcus, what are you doing on? It's not what you think. Look at this profile. The screen showed a woman named Linda Martinez, with photos that looked suspiciously familiar. Same face as Lila, but with darker hair and different makeup. The profile said she was a widow from Miami looking for a generous man who believes in helping others achieve their dreams. I found 3 different profiles, Marcus said, clicking through tabs. Linda Martinez in Florida, Lila Thompson in Georgia, and Lisa Morgan in Nevada. Same woman, different names, different stories. My hands went cold. How did you find these? Reverse image search. I took one of her Facebook photos and searched for other places it appeared online. Grandma, she's been running the same game on different men in different states. He clicked to another profile. Lisa Morgan, age 34, recently divorced, working with at-risk youth, needed help getting back on her feet. The story was almost identical to what she'd told Daniel, just with different details. This one's from 6 months ago. And look at this message thread. The screen showed a conversation between Lisa and a man named Robert. She was asking for help with ministry expenses and family emergencies. The man was sending her money, first hundreds, then thousands, then a final message saying he couldn't help anymore because his wife had found out. Marcus, how did you get access to these messages? She didn't log out of the computer at the library when I was there yesterday. Left everything open when she went to the bathroom. He looked up at me with those serious dark eyes. I know I shouldn't have looked, but Grandma, I had to know. Had to know. This child was carrying the weight of protecting our entire family, and he was doing detective work that grown investigators would be proud of. What else did you find? He flipped through his notebook, pages covered with neat handwriting and printed screenshots. She's got bank accounts in 3 different states. Credit cards in multiple names. And look at this. The next page showed printed emails between Lila and someone named Craig in Ohio. The subject line read, Daniel Johnson, Asset Assessment. She's been planning this for months, Grandma. Since last fall. She knows about Daddy's construction business, about our house, about the savings account. She even knows about my college fund. Asset assessment. Like our family was a business she was planning to acquire. How could she know all that? Marcus flipped to another page. Remember Tommy Watson from Daddy's crew? The one who got fired for stealing tools? I remembered. Daniel had caught Tommy taking copper wire from job sites and had to let him go. It had broken Daniel's heart because Tommy had kids to feed. She's been dating Tommy since September. He's been giving her information about Daddy's finances, his work schedule, even personal stuff about our family. The room felt like it was tilting. Tommy Watson, feeding information to Lila for months while Daniel thought he was protecting his former employee's reputation by not pressing charges for the stolen tools. They planned this whole thing, Marcus continued. The sudden reappearance, the ministry story, even which church to mention so it would sound believable to Daddy. I thought about Daniel's face when he talked about Lila finding God. The hope in his voice when he described her ministry work. My son had been played from the very beginning, manipulated by someone who'd studied him like a script. There's more. Marcus's voice got quieter. I found text messages between her and Tommy. About what they're going to do with the money once they get it. He showed me printed screenshots of messages that made my stomach turn. Lila and Tommy planning to take Daniel's money and disappear together. Discussing how long they'd need to keep up the act before they could cash out and move on. Laughing about how easy it was to make Daniel believe in second chances. She's going to destroy him again, Marcus said. But this time, she's going to take everything. The house, the savings, his business, everything. I looked at my grandson, this boy who should have been worried about homework and friends and whether he'd make the basketball team. Instead, he was sitting in my kitchen, protecting our family from a con artist who'd fooled every adult around her. What do you think we should do? I think we need to show Daddy the truth before it's too late. But not just tell him, show him in a way he can't deny or explain away. What are you thinking? Marcus closed his laptop and looked at me with an expression that reminded me so much of his grandfather it took my breath away. Determined. Protective. Ready to fight for what mattered. I'm thinking Lila and Tommy don't know that I know. They're still planning their con, still thinking Daddy's an easy target. But what if we let them think they're winning while we gather enough evidence to stop them? That sounds dangerous, baby. More dangerous than letting them steal everything? He shook his head. Grandma, I can't just sit here and watch Daddy lose his house and his savings and his dignity again. Not when I can do something about it. The weight of his words settled over me like a heavy blanket. This child was ready to take on adults who'd been running cons probably since before he was born. But he was also the smartest person in our family right now, and maybe the only one thinking clearly. What's your plan? I want to set up a meeting with Lila. Just me and her. Let her think she can win me over, get me on her side. While she's trying to manipulate me, I'll be recording everything. Recording. My 13-year-old grandson was planning to wear a wire like he was working undercover for the FBI. Marcus, that's smart, he finished. It's smart, and it's necessary, and it's the only way to save Daddy from himself. I looked at this boy who'd already lost his mother, who'd watched his father nearly lose his mind over Lila the first time, who was now watching it happen again. And I realized something that should have scared me but didn't. Marcus was right. Sometimes it takes a child to do what adults can't. Sometimes protection comes from the most unexpected places. Okay, I said. But we do this together. And we do it safe. Marcus smiled for the first time all week. Don't worry, Grandma. I've got this figured out. That's what worried me most. Have you ever had to protect your family from someone you loved? Share your thoughts below, and hit that subscribe button because this story is just getting started. Sunday after church, I called Lila myself. Marcus sat next to me at the kitchen table, giving me thumbs up for encouragement while I dialed the number Daniel had left on my refrigerator. Mrs. Johnson. Her voice was sweet as honey when she answered. What a lovely surprise. Hello, Lila. I was hoping we could have lunch this week. Just us ladies. I realize I didn't give you much of a chance to share your story when you were here last Sunday. The pause on her end lasted just long enough for me to know she was calculating. Figuring out what angle to take with the grandmother who'd been cold to her. I would love that. I've been hoping we could connect better. Wednesday work for you? Say around noon? I know a nice little place downtown. Perfect. Should I pick you up? Oh no, honey. I'll drive myself. Meet you at Rosie's Diner on Main Street. You know the one? I'll find it. Mrs. Johnson, I'm really looking forward to this. I know we got off on the wrong foot, but I want you to know how much Daniel and Marcus mean to me. After I hung up, Marcus looked at me with approval. Good job, Grandma. You sounded like you really wanted to be friends with her. I should have been an actress. You kind of are one now. Wednesday morning, I got dressed in my best church outfit and clipped the tiny recorder Marcus had shown me how to use inside my jacket pocket. The device was smaller than a pack of gum, but it could capture 3 hours of conversation with perfect clarity. Rosie's Diner had been serving comfort food to Columbus families for 30 years. Red vinyl booths, checkered floors, and waitresses who remembered your order from last visit. It was the kind of place where honest people came for honest meals, which made it perfect for exposing a liar. Lila arrived 10 minutes late, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Designer purse, professional makeup, clothes that cost more than most people spent on groceries. For someone living simply and serving others, she sure knew how to put together an expensive look. Mrs. Johnson, you look beautiful, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. Thank you, dear. You look quite lovely yourself. That's a gorgeous handbag. She touched the purse like she'd forgotten she was carrying it. Oh, this old thing? It was a gift from the ministry. They wanted me to look professional when I meet with families. A gift from the ministry. Right. The same ministry that had never heard of her. We ordered coffee and sandwiches, making small talk about the weather and the neighborhood while I waited for the right moment to start digging. Lila was good, I had to give her that. She asked about my health, complimented my home, even mentioned how much she'd missed Marcus over the years. You know, I said, stirring sugar into my coffee, Daniel told me about your ministry work in Georgia. It sounds like meaningful service. Her face lit up. It really is. Working with families in crisis, helping children who've been through trauma, it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done. What kind of training did you need for that work? Mostly hands-on experience. Learning from the other counselors, attending workshops. The church provided most of the education. And you've been doing this for how long now? About 2 years. Since I really committed to changing my life. 2 years. But Marcus had found social media posts from that exact time period showing her gambling in Atlantic City and shopping in Miami. Either she was commuting between Georgia ministry work and Florida vacation time, or someone was lying. That must be expensive, traveling for ministry work. The church covers most expenses. She took a sip of coffee, watching me over the rim of her cup. Mrs. Johnson, I hope you don't mind me asking, but how do you feel about Daniel and me getting back together? Direct question. Time for a direct response. I feel protective. Daniel's my only son, and he was hurt badly when you left before. I understand that. I really do. But I'm not the same person who made those mistakes. What's different now? She leaned forward, and I caught a whiff of expensive perfume. I've learned what real love means. Not selfish love that takes, but selfless love that gives. I want to build something lasting with Daniel, something that includes Marcus and you and the whole family. Selfless love that gives. Interesting choice of words from someone who was planning to take everything we had. Building something lasting requires resources, I said carefully. Daniel mentioned you have some financial challenges to work through. Her hand went to that cross around her neck, fingers worrying the chain like prayer beads. Some debts from before I found my path. Nothing that can't be handled with time and patience. How much time? Not long. Maybe 6 months to get everything cleared up. Daniel's been so generous, offering to help with the immediate concerns. Generous. That's one way to describe a man about to mortgage his son's future for his ex-wife's lies. $60,000 is quite a bit of immediate concern. Something flickered across her face, surprised that I knew the exact amount, maybe concerned that Daniel had told me more than she'd expected. Daniel told you the specifics? Daniel tells me everything. Always has. She nodded, but I saw her calculating again. Trying to figure out how much I knew and how much danger I represented to her plans. Mrs. Johnson, I want you to know that I would never ask Daniel for anything he couldn't afford to give. The last thing I want is to cause financial stress for the family. Then why not wait? Build your relationship first, let trust develop naturally, handle your debts yourself. Because some debts can't wait. The people I owe, they're not patient people. There it was. The first crack in her ministry story. Suddenly her debts weren't from helping unfortunate families, they were from dealing with impatient creditors who sounded suspiciously like loan sharks. What kind of people? She caught herself too late. I mean, the ministry has obligations. Commitments to families who are counting on our help. But the damage was done. For just a moment, the mask had slipped, and I'd seen the real Lila underneath. Not a reformed woman seeking redemption, but someone running scared from debts that probably had nothing to do with helping anyone but herself. Well, I said, signaling for the check, I suppose we'll all find out how things work out. Mrs. Johnson, I hope you'll give me a chance. I know I have to earn your trust, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Including lying to my face while wearing a cross and talking about selfless love. We hugged goodbye in the parking lot, her idea, not mine, and I felt the recorder in my pocket capture every word she whispered in my ear. Thank you for giving me another chance. I won't let Daniel down this time. But as I drove home, I kept thinking about those impatient people she owed money to, and how someone who'd supposedly spent 2 years doing ministry work could rack up $60,000 in debts that couldn't wait. Marcus was waiting for me when I got home, homework spread across the kitchen table like camouflage. How'd it go? I handed him the recorder. Listen for yourself. While Marcus uploaded the audio file to his laptop, I made us both hot chocolate and tried to process what I'd learned. Lila wasn't just a con artist, she was a con artist in trouble. Which made her even more dangerous than we thought. Grandma, listen to this part. Marcus had headphones on, rewinding to a specific section. When you asked about the debts, her voice changed completely. He was right. Playing back the conversation, I could hear it clearly. The smooth, practiced tone she'd used for most of our lunch had turned sharp and nervous when I'd pressed for details about who she owed money to. She's scared, Marcus said. And scared people do desperate things. Which means we need to move faster. Agreed. I'm calling Tommy tomorrow after school. Time to see what he knows about Lila's real situation. My 13-year-old grandson was about to interrogate a grown man who'd been feeding information to criminals. And honestly, I was proud of him for it. Have you ever discovered that someone in your family was being targeted by a professional con artist? Tell me in the comments how you'd handle a situation like this, and make sure you're subscribed because things are about to get very intense. Thursday afternoon, Marcus called Tommy Watson from my landline while I listened on the extension in my bedroom. We'd rehearsed this conversation 3 times, with Marcus practicing different ways to sound casual while fishing for information about Lila's real plans. Hey, Tommy. It's Marcus Johnson. Marcus. Man, good to hear from you, kid. How's your dad doing? He's good. Really good, actually. He's got a girlfriend now. Well, ex-wife, but they're getting back together. Yeah? Tommy's voice got careful. That's great news. Her name's Lila. You ever meet her? The pause was long enough for me to know Marcus had hit something important. Lila, huh? Yeah, I think I might have met her once or twice. Nice lady. Nice lady. Tommy was lying already, and we were only 2 minutes into the conversation. She's been helping Daddy with some financial planning stuff. Making sure he's smart with his money, you know? Financial planning. Right. Tommy, can I ask you something? Man to man? Sure, kid. Do you think Daddy's making the right choice? Getting back with someone who hurt him before? Another long pause. I could almost hear Tommy thinking, trying to figure out how much this 13-year-old boy knew. Marcus, your dad's a grown man. He's got to make his own decisions about love and stuff. I know. But between you and me, I'm worried about him. Lila needs a lot of money to get back on her feet, and Daddy's talking about taking out loans against the house. Loans against the house? Tommy's voice sharpened with interest, and I knew we'd just confirmed something for him. He was reporting back to Lila, which meant our conversation was going to be repeated word for word. Yeah. Something about helping her with ministry debts in Georgia. But Tommy, that's where me and Grandma live. If something goes wrong with the loan. Nothing's gonna go wrong, kid. Your dad's smart with money. Is he though? I mean, you know him better than anybody. You worked with him for 3 years. Would you trust him to make good decisions about women? Tommy laughed, but it sounded forced. Your dad's got a good heart. Sometimes that gets him in trouble. What do you mean? Nothing, kid. Just, good heart sometimes trusts the wrong people. Like Lila? The question hung in the air like smoke. Tommy was quiet so long I thought the call had dropped. Marcus, you didn't hear this from me, okay? But maybe keep an eye on things. Make sure your dad doesn't get in over his head. What kind of things should I watch for? Just, if anyone starts asking about bank accounts or investments or stuff like that. If anyone wants access to information that ain't their business. Anyone. Not Lila specifically, but anyone. Tommy was trying to warn Marcus without admitting he knew exactly who the threat was. Tommy, do you think Lila really changed? Kid, people don't change. They just get better at hiding who they really are. After Marcus hung up, we sat in my kitchen going over what we'd learned. Tommy knew about Lila's con, was probably helping coordinate it, but something in his voice suggested he wasn't entirely comfortable with targeting a family that included a 13-year-old boy. He likes you, I told Marcus. Even working with her, he still cares about you and your daddy. Which means maybe we can turn him. Turn him? Get him to help us instead of helping her. If we can prove to Tommy that we know everything, maybe he'll switch sides. This boy was thinking like a chess player, moving pieces 3 steps ahead of everyone else on the board. That's dangerous, baby. If Tommy tells Lila we know about her game, then she runs, and Daddy never finds out the truth. He'll spend the rest of his life thinking she just got cold feet instead of learning that she was robbing him blind. Marcus was right. Running Lila out of town might save our money, but it wouldn't save Daniel from himself. The next con artist who came along would find him just as vulnerable, just as willing to trust the wrong person. We need proof she can't deny, Marcus continued. Something so clear that even Daddy can't make excuses for it. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we set up a meeting with Tommy. Face to face. Show him what we know about Lila's other victims, her fake profiles, her real financial situation. Give him a choice, help us protect Daddy, or go down with Lila when everything falls apart. And if he chooses Lila? Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me a new contact he'd added. Then we call Robert from Florida and see if he wants to file a police report about interstate fraud. And we call the other victims I found online. And we make sure Lila's next stop is a courtroom instead of another lonely man's bank account. My grandson had built a case that could send Lila to prison and Tommy right along with her. But he was offering them both a way out, a chance to do the right thing before the law got involved. When do you want to meet with Tommy? Tomorrow after school. At the basketball court behind the community center. Somewhere public but private, you know. I knew. And I also knew that my 13-year-old grandson was about to confront a grown man who'd been lying to our family for months. The thought should have terrified me, but instead it filled me with pride. This boy wasn't just protecting our money. He was protecting his father's dignity, his family's future, and probably saving other families from becoming Lila's next victims. Okay, I said. But I'm driving you there, and I'm staying close enough to help if you need it. Marcus grinned. Deal. But Grandma? Yes? Tommy's not the real enemy here. He's just weak. The real fight starts after we get him on our side. Have you ever had to choose between loyalty to a friend and protecting an innocent family? Comment below and tell me what you'd do in Tommy's position, and hit that like button if you think Marcus has what it takes to pull this off. Friday afternoon at 4:30. I sat in my car outside the community center watching Marcus walk across the basketball court toward Tommy Watson. My grandson looked smaller than usual in his winter coat, but he moved with purpose that made him seem older than his 13 years. Tommy was shooting baskets by himself, probably trying to work off nervous energy before this conversation. When he saw Marcus approaching, he stopped mid-shot and just stood there holding the basketball like it might protect him from whatever was coming. I couldn't hear their words from my car, but I could see their body language. Marcus calm and confident. Tommy shifting his weight from foot to foot like he wanted to run. Then Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Tommy something on the screen. Even from 50 yards away, I watched Tommy's whole posture change. His shoulders dropped. The basketball fell from his hands and bounced away across the asphalt. Whatever Marcus had shown him, probably those fake dating profiles or the conversation with Robert from Florida, had hit its target. Tommy knew his game was over. They talked for 20 minutes while I sat in my car, hands gripped tight around the steering wheel, praying my grandson could handle this confrontation without getting hurt. But watching them, I realized Marcus didn't need my protection. He needed my support, and there was a difference. This boy had become the defender our family needed. Not through violence or threats, but through intelligence and courage and a 13-year-old's crystal-clear sense of right and wrong. When Marcus finally walked back to my car, Tommy was still standing on the basketball court, staring at his phone like it might explode. "How'd it go?" I asked as Marcus buckled his seatbelt. "Better than expected." "Tommy's scared, Grandma." "Really scared?" "Of Lila?" "Of going to jail." Apparently, helping someone commit fraud across state lines is a federal crime. Tommy didn't know that when he started feeding Lila information about Daddy's finances. Federal crime. My grandson was throwing around legal terms like he'd been studying law instead of 8th grade algebra. "What did you tell him?" I told him we knew everything. About the fake profiles, the other victims, the planning emails, all of it. But I also told him we weren't interested in destroying his life if he helped us protect ours. "And what did he say?" Marcus smiled, not the innocent grin of a 13-year-old, but the satisfied expression of someone who just won a very important negotiation. He said Lila's planning to ask Daddy for the money this weekend. She's going to claim her creditors are threatening her, that she needs $75,000 immediately or something terrible will happen. 75,000. The number kept growing every time it came up in conversation. Did he say what kind of terrible thing? Physical harm. She's going to tell Daddy that the people she owes money to are dangerous, that they've threatened to hurt her if she doesn't pay up soon. I felt my blood pressure spike. Not only was Lila planning to steal our money, she was going to manipulate Daniel by making him feel like her protector. She was going to turn his decent heart against him and make him think he was saving her life instead of funding her next vacation. And Tommy agreed to help us stop her. Tommy agreed to record their next planning conversation. Apparently, they're meeting tomorrow night to coordinate what Lila's going to tell Daddy. Tommy's going to wear a wire and get her to admit the whole thing on tape. What if she gets suspicious? She won't. Tommy's been playing dumb this whole time, letting her think he's just muscle with no brains. She has no idea he's figured out what kind of trouble he's in. We drove home in comfortable silence, both of us processing what had just happened. My grandson had just turned a co-conspirator into an ally, flipped someone who was working against us into someone working for us. "Marcus?" "Yeah?" "How did you know Tommy would help us instead of warning Lila?" He was quiet for a moment, looking out the window at houses where other families were dealing with normal problems like homework and dinner plans. "Because Tommy has kids too. 2 little girls with his ex-girlfriend in Kentucky. When I showed him what Lila did to Robert's family in Florida, how she almost cost that man his marriage and his kids' college funds, Tommy realized she'd do the same thing to our family. And he doesn't want to be responsible for that. Nobody wants to be the reason a kid loses his home. Even people who make bad choices still have consciences. Consciences. This boy understood human nature better than most adults I knew. That evening, while Marcus did homework at the kitchen table, I sat in your grandpa's old recliner thinking about how quickly everything had changed. A week ago, our biggest worry was whether Daniel would ever find love again. Now we were running a counterintelligence operation to protect our family from organized fraud. But I wasn't worried anymore. Marcus had shown me something important. Sometimes the people who love you most aren't the ones who make the biggest noise or the boldest promises. Sometimes they're the quiet ones who pay attention, who remember details, who work behind the scenes to keep everyone safe. My grandson was becoming the kind of man his grandfather would have been proud of. Protective without being aggressive. Smart without being cruel. Determined to do right even when right was complicated. Tomorrow night, Tommy would record Lila admitting her real plans. And by Sunday, we'd have everything we needed to save Daniel from making the biggest mistake of his life. What would you do if your family's safety depended on a 13-year-old's plan? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe because the real showdown is coming next. Saturday evening, Tommy Watson came to my house carrying a gym bag and looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. His hands shook when he knocked on my door, and when I let him in, he kept glancing over his shoulder like Lila might materialize in my driveway. "Mrs. Johnson, I need you to know I never meant for things to go this far." "Sit down, Tommy." "Coffee? Please." Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in his basketball uniform from the game that afternoon. We'd won by 12 points, but the victory felt small compared to what we were about to attempt. "You ready for this?" Marcus asked Tommy. "Ready as I'll ever be." Tommy unzipped his gym bag and pulled out a device that looked like a small radio. "This thing records everything within 30 feet. My cousin's a private investigator, he lent it to me." A private investigator. Tommy had connections we hadn't counted on, which made me feel better about sending him into a room with Lila to gather evidence. "When are you meeting her?" I asked. 8 o'clock. She wants to go over what she's going to tell Daniel tomorrow, make sure our stories match up. Our stories. Even now, Tommy was talking like he was still part of Lila's team. But the fear in his eyes told me he understood exactly what kind of trouble he'd gotten himself into. "Tommy," Marcus said quietly, "what made you help her in the first place?" Tommy looked down at his coffee mug, shame written all over his face. "Money. She offered me $5,000 cash just for information about your dad's finances. Said she was planning a surprise for Daniel, something about investing in a business together. $5,000. For a man who'd lost his job and had 2 little girls to support, that probably seemed like a fortune. When did you figure out it wasn't really about business?" "Last week, when she started asking about your college fund and your grandma's savings accounts." No business investment needs to know about a kid's college money. At least Tommy had enough sense to recognize when he'd crossed from helping a girlfriend to robbing a child. "What's she really planning to do with the money?" I asked. Tommy's hands clenched around his coffee mug. "There is no ministry debt. There are no dangerous creditors. She owes money to casinos in Nevada and Florida. Gambling debts. Bad gambling debts. Gambling debts. Not ministry work or family emergencies or any of the noble causes she'd been describing. Lila was a gambling addict who'd burned through her own money and now needed Daniel's to keep her out of serious trouble." "How much does she really owe?" "Close to $200,000. And the people she owes, they're not patient. $200,000. 3 times what she'd told Daniel. And if she was dealing with casino debt collectors, then the danger she described was real, just not in the way she'd presented it." "So she's going to take Daniel's $75,000 and run?" "That's just the first payment. She's planning to milk this for as long as possible. Tell him the creditors want more, that the situation's gotten worse, that she needs ongoing support to stay safe." Ongoing support. Lila was planning to turn Daniel into her personal ATM, feeding him fear and fake emergencies until there was nothing left to take. Marcus looked at me across the kitchen table, and I saw my own thoughts reflected in his eyes. This wasn't just fraud, it was going to be emotional torture. Lila would keep Daniel in a constant state of panic about her safety, making him feel responsible for protecting her from consequences of her own bad choices. "Tommy," I said, "what happens if we can't stop this? What happens to Daniel when she disappears with his money?" "The same thing that happened to Robert in Florida. And the guy in Texas. And the one in California." Tommy's voice was barely above a whisper. "They lose everything, blame themselves, and spend years trying to figure out what they did wrong. Years trying to figure out what they did wrong. When the only thing they'd done wrong was trust someone who made lying look like love." "But it's not too late," Marcus said firmly. "If we can get Lila to admit her real plans on tape, we can save Daddy and probably help the police catch her before she does this to someone else." Tommy nodded slowly. "Kid, I want you to know, I never would have helped her if I'd known it was your family she was targeting. Your dad gave me work when nobody else would. You and your grandma always treated me with respect. I needed the money." "We know," Marcus said. "But you can make it right now. What if she gets suspicious? What if she figures out I'm recording her? Then you tell her you're scared about the federal fraud charges and you want to make sure everyone's story is straight," I said. "Make her think you're protecting yourself, not betraying her." Tommy looked at the recording device like it might bite him. "And after I get what you need?" "After we save my daddy, you disappear," Marcus said. "Leave town, start over somewhere else." We won't mention your name to the police if you help us stop her. And if I don't help you? Marcus pulled out his laptop and showed Tommy the evidence file he'd been building. Screenshots of Lila's fake profiles. Contact information for her other victims. Documentation of Tommy's involvement in gathering information about our family. Then Monday morning, I call the FBI's Financial Crimes Division and give them everything I've collected. They'll probably want to talk to you about your role in an interstate fraud conspiracy. Interstate fraud conspiracy. My grandson was threatening federal charges like he worked for the prosecutor's office. Tommy stared at the screen for a long time. You're 13 years old. And you're 34 with 2 daughters who need their daddy to make better choices. The room went quiet except for the hum of my refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic on Main Street. Tommy was weighing his options: help a 13-year-old stop a con artist, or risk federal prison for loyalty to a woman who would throw him away the second things got complicated. Okay, he said finally. I'll do it. But kid? Yeah? After this is over, we're even. I don't owe your family anything, and your family doesn't owe me anything. Deal, Marcus said, reaching across the table to shake Tommy's hand. Watching a 13-year-old boy negotiate with a grown man who'd been planning to rob us should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt like justice. Have you ever seen a kid handle adult problems better than the adults? Share your experiences in the comments, and make sure you subscribe because tomorrow night's recording is going to change everything. Sunday morning at 11:15, Tommy Watson called my house with audio that would break Daniel's heart and save his future. Marcus and I had been sitting at the kitchen table since 10 o'clock, waiting for confirmation that our plan had worked. I got it, Tommy said without preamble. Everything. Her real debts, her next targets, her exit strategy. All of it. Play it, Marcus said, putting the call on speaker. What came through my phone's speakers was 43 minutes of the most calculated evil I'd ever heard. Lila's voice, clear as day, laying out her plans for destroying my family like she was reading from a grocery list. Once I get the 75 from Daniel, I'll string him along for another 3 months, her recorded voice said. Keep telling him the creditors want more, that the situation's getting worse. Men like Daniel, they can't stand the thought of a woman being hurt because they didn't do enough to help. How much you think you can get total? Tommy's voice asked. Minimum 200,000. Maybe more if I can get him to mortgage the house his kid lives in. Divorced dads with guilt will do anything to prove they're good providers. Divorced dads with guilt. She'd studied Daniel like a textbook, figured out exactly which emotional buttons to push to make him hand over everything he'd worked for. What about the old lady and the kid? The grandmother's the biggest obstacle. She sees right through me. But the kid's actually an asset. An asset. Lila was talking about Marcus like he was a piece of property she could use in her con. How so? 13-year-old boys want their daddies to be happy. If I can convince Marcus that I make Daniel happy, he'll pressure the grandmother to stop interfering. Kids that age just want family stability, even if it costs money. I looked at Marcus while we listened. His jaw was set hard, his hands clenched into fists on the table. Hearing Lila talk about manipulating him was hitting him harder than I'd expected. What if the grandmother keeps fighting you? Then we accelerate the timeline. Make Daniel choose between his mother's approval and his girlfriend's safety. Tell him the creditors won't wait, that I need to disappear for a while unless he can help me resolve everything immediately. And if he can't get that much money that fast? Lila's laugh came through the speakers cold and sharp. Then I'd disappear anyway, but with whatever I managed to get. Men like Daniel never report this kind of thing to police. Too embarrassed about being fooled twice by the same woman. Too embarrassed about being fooled twice. She was counting on Daniel's pride to protect her from consequences. What about Tommy? Tommy's own voice asked. What happens to me when you disappear? You'll be fine. Just another construction worker who got caught up in a bad situation. Besides, who's going to believe you knew anything? You're not smart enough to plan something like this. Not smart enough. Even in her private planning sessions, Lila was insulting Tommy while using him. And the kid? Marcus? What if he figures out what really happened? He's 13. 13-year-olds don't understand adult relationships or financial planning. By the time he's old enough to put the pieces together, I'll be long gone and it'll be too late to matter. The recording ended with Lila giving Tommy specific instructions about what to say when Daniel called, how to back up her story about urgent creditor demands, and when to disappear himself to avoid questions afterward. Marcus took off his headphones and looked at me with eyes that held too much knowledge for someone his age. She thinks I'm stupid. She's wrong about that. She's wrong about everything. About Daddy, about you, about me. She thinks we're easy marks because we love each other. Because we love each other. Leave it to a 13-year-old to identify exactly why con artists target families. They use our love against us, turn our best instincts into weapons for our own destruction. Marcus, you know what this means? It means we have her. Everything we need to stop her and protect Daddy. It also means we have to hurt your daddy to save him. That was the part I'd been dreading. Daniel was going to hear this recording and realize that the woman he loved, the woman he'd been planning a future with, had been laughing about his stupidity behind his back. He was going to learn that his second chance at happiness was actually a well-planned robbery. Grandma, would you rather Daddy get hurt by the truth now, or get destroyed by lies later? The truth. Always the truth. Then we call him. Tonight. Ask him to come over for Sunday dinner, and we play this recording. What about Lila? She's expecting to see him tomorrow. Marcus's expression went cold. She'll see him. But not the Daniel she's been planning to rob. She'll see the Daniel who knows exactly who she really is. I called Daniel at 6 o'clock, while Marcus set up his laptop to play the recording through my stereo speakers. We wanted to make sure every word, every laugh, every calculated detail of Lila's plan was crystal clear. Hey, Mama, Daniel answered on the second ring. I was just about to call you. Come for dinner tonight, baby. I want to talk to you about something important. Actually, that works out perfect. I wanted to talk to you too. About Lila's situation. It's gotten more urgent. More urgent. Right on schedule, just like Tommy had predicted. Then come on over. Marcus is making his famous spaghetti. Is Marcus okay with me talking about Lila? I know he's been cold to her. Marcus wants what's best for you, Daniel. He always has. When I hung up, Marcus was testing the audio system, making sure the recording would play clearly through my speakers. He'd learned to operate technology one barely understood, all to protect a family that didn't even know it needed protecting. You ready for this? I asked him. I'm ready for Daddy to see the truth. I'm ready for our family to be safe. I'm ready for Lila to face consequences for what she's been planning. And are you ready for your daddy to be heartbroken? Marcus looked at me with eyes that held more wisdom than any 13-year-old should carry. Grandma, Daddy's heart is going to break either way. At least this way, it breaks honest. Have you ever had to destroy someone's dream to save their life? Tell me in the comments what you do in our situation, and smash that subscribe button because the confrontation you've been waiting for is finally here. You want to know what betrayal looks like? It's your own son standing in your living room, pointing his finger at you like you're the criminal. That's exactly what happened when Daniel stormed through my front door that Thursday evening, his face red as a tomato and his voice shaking with rage. Mom, how could you do this to me? He shouted, waving his phone in the air. Lila showed me the messages. You and Marcus have been plotting against her this whole time. I stayed calm, sitting in my favorite chair, the same one where I'd held him as a baby. What messages, Daniel? Don't play dumb with me. He thrust the phone toward my face. Look at this. Screenshots of you telling people Lila's a scammer. You've been spreading lies about the woman I love. My heart dropped. Those weren't my messages. I grabbed the phone and studied the screen carefully. There it was, my name, my profile picture, but words I'd never typed. Messages calling Lila terrible names, claiming she was running scams, even threatening to destroy her reputation. Daniel, honey, I never sent these messages. This isn't real. Stop lying. His voice cracked like it did when he was 12 and caught stealing cookies. Lila wouldn't make this up. She's hurt, Mom. She's crying because my own mother wants to ruin our relationship. Marcus appeared in the doorway, still holding his laptop. Dad, those are fake. Anyone can create fake screenshots. We need to show you what we actually found. Get out. Daniel pointed toward the door. Both of you are jealous because I found happiness. You can't stand seeing me with someone who actually cares about me. Here's where my heart broke into 1,000 pieces. My own son, the boy I raised to question everything, was so blinded by this woman that he couldn't see the truth when it was staring him in the face. But Lila was smart. She'd gotten ahead of us by creating fake evidence to make us look like the villains. If you two don't stop this harassment, Daniel continued, I'm moving to Georgia with Lila. And I'm taking what's left of my inheritance with me. What inheritance? I stood up slowly. You already took every penny we had. There's more coming when Grandpa's house sells. Lila helped me understand my rights. That money belongs to me too. That's when Marcus stepped forward, his young voice steady as a rock. Dad, before you make any more decisions, just look at one thing. Please. Daniel crossed his arms. I'm not looking at any more of your fake evidence. It's not fake. It's a live video call. Before Daniel could protest, Marcus had already dialed a number on his laptop. Within seconds, a man's face appeared on the screen, older, wearing a police uniform, sitting in what looked like a station office. Mrs. Johnson, the officer said, looking directly at the camera. This is Detective Rodriguez from Savannah PD. We've been trying to reach someone in your family about Lila Matthews. Daniel's face went white. What's this about? Sir, are you related to Lila Matthews? Because we have an active warrant for her arrest. She's wanted for fraud, identity theft, and running an elaborate romance scam across 3 states. We believe she's currently in Ohio, possibly staying with someone she's convinced to send her money. The room went dead quiet. You could hear the neighbor's dog barking outside, but inside our house, nobody breathed. That's impossible, Daniel whispered. She's not, she wouldn't. Detective Rodriguez continued, Sir, we've documented over 40 victims in the past 2 years. Her pattern is always the same: reconnect with former relationships, claim financial hardship, then disappear once she gets the money. We have bank records showing transfers totaling over $300,000 from various victims. Daniel sank into the couch like someone had pulled his plug. 40 victims? Including a 67-year-old retired teacher in Florida who lost his entire pension. And a widow in Kentucky who mortgaged her house to help Lila with what she claimed were medical bills. Marcus looked at his father with eyes that seemed way too old for 13. Dad, we tried to tell you. But here's the thing that made me want to scream. Even with a police detective explaining Lila's crimes, Daniel still wasn't convinced. He sat there shaking his head, muttering about how this had to be some mistake, how Lila loved him and would never hurt anyone. Officers sometimes get cases confused, he said weakly. Maybe there's another Lila Matthews. Detective Rodriguez's expression got serious. Sir, does the woman you know have a butterfly tattoo on her left shoulder and a scar above her right eyebrow? Daniel's face crumbled. Those were details only someone intimate with Lila would know. We need your cooperation, the detective continued. If she's staying with you or has access to your finances, you could be in danger of losing more money. We've seen her drain accounts worth 6 figures in a single day. That's when my grandson did something that still gives me chills. Marcus walked over to his father, sat down beside him on the couch, and spoke in a voice that sounded like an old man's wisdom trapped in a child's body. Dad, I know you love her. I know you want to believe she's changed. But love doesn't mean ignoring the truth. Grandma didn't work 40 years just to watch her retirement disappear because someone lied to you. Daniel looked at his son, then at me, then back at the detective on the screen. For the first time in months, I saw doubt creep into his eyes. What do I need to do? He asked quietly. Don't you dare scroll away now. Because what happened next changed everything. Daniel was finally ready to listen, but Lila was about to make a move that would shock us all. If this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button and tell us in the comments, have you ever had to choose between protecting family and keeping the peace? Subscribe because this family drama is about to get a whole lot more intense. Setting a trap for a professional con artist isn't something they teach you in church, but that Thursday night, Marcus and I became students of deception. We had Detective Rodriguez's guidance, but the real work had to be done by us. Daniel was finally on board, but barely. He looked like a man walking to his own execution. She'll know something's wrong if I act different, Daniel kept saying as we planned. Lila reads people for a living. Marcus had become our little general, organizing everything like a military operation. Dad, you don't have to act. Just be yourself, confused and worried about money. Tell her the bank is asking questions about the large withdrawals. What if she runs? Daniel asked. Then we'll know for sure she's guilty, I replied. Innocent people don't run when banks ask legitimate questions. The plan was simple but brilliant. Daniel would tell Lila that our bank had flagged the large transfers and frozen his accounts pending an investigation. He'd act panicked, asking her advice on what to do. If she was innocent, she'd suggest calling the bank or getting legal help. If she was guilty, she'd either disappear immediately or try to manipulate him into fighting the bank's investigation. Detective Rodriguez would be listening through Daniel's phone, which Marcus had figured out how to set up for recording. We needed Lila to incriminate herself with her own words. Remember, Marcus told his father, don't accuse her of anything. Just tell her what the bank said and see how she reacts. Friday morning arrived gray and cloudy, matching the mood in our house. Daniel looked like he hadn't slept, which was probably true. He kept checking his phone, waiting for Lila's usual good morning text. She always calls by 9, he said, pacing around my kitchen. Every single day since she's been back. 9 o'clock came and went. No call. Maybe she's busy, Daniel suggested, but his voice carried doubt now. By noon, we were all staring at his silent phone. Marcus pulled up Lila's social media profiles again. Dad, look at this. He showed us Lila's Facebook page. She posted 3 hours ago from a gas station in Tennessee. Tennessee? Daniel grabbed the phone. She said she was spending the day at home, doing laundry. That's when it hit me like a punch to the stomach. She's running, Daniel. She knows we're on to her. But my grandson, bless his heart, started laughing. Actually laughing. Grandma, Dad, don't you get it? She's not running away from us. She's running toward her next victim. Look at the location tag on her post. He was right. The gas station was halfway between Ohio and Atlanta. Marcus pulled up her recent activity and found something that made my blood boil. She's been messaging someone named Robert in Atlanta. Look at these public comments on his posts. Can't wait to see you again, baby, and thank you for being so generous, you're amazing. Daniel stared at the screen like he was reading his own death certificate. She's doing the same thing to someone else? Dad, she probably has 5 guys going at once. That's how these scams work. The phone finally rang at 2:30 p.m. Daniel's hands were shaking as he answered, putting it on speaker like we'd practiced. Daniel, baby. Lila's voice sounded breathless, excited. I have the most amazing news. Lila, where are you? I thought you were doing laundry today. A pause. Just long enough to make us all hold our breath. Oh, sweetheart, I had to drive to Tennessee to see my sick aunt. Remember I told you about her? She's in the hospital and needed someone to handle her paperwork. The lie rolled off her tongue smooth as butter. But Marcus was already shaking his head, showing us her social media post about road trip adventures, with no mention of any sick relative. That's good of you to help family, Daniel said, following our script. But Lila, I need to tell you something. The bank called this morning about our transfers. Another pause. Longer this time. What kind of call? They're asking questions about the large amounts I've been sending. They want documentation proving it was for legitimate purposes. They mentioned something about investigating financial fraud patterns. Silence. Complete, dead silence for 15 seconds. Daniel, baby, banks do this sometimes. It's just routine. Don't worry about it. But they're talking about freezing my accounts until I can prove the money was for valid expenses. Lila, I'm scared. What if they think I'm doing something illegal? Here's where we expected her to offer comfort, maybe suggest he call the bank or get legal advice. Instead, her voice turned sharp and cold. Daniel, listen to me very carefully. Do not cooperate with any bank investigation. Tell them you lost the receipts. Tell them it was gambling losses. Tell them anything except the truth about our financial arrangement. Marcus's eyes went wide. Even Daniel looked shocked. Why would I lie to the bank? Daniel asked. Because if you tell them you were helping me pay debts, they'll start asking questions about me too. And honey, I have some old issues with the IRS that could get complicated. You don't want to drag me into that mess, do you? My son's face went through about 6 different emotions in 10 seconds. The woman he loved was asking him to lie to federal authorities to cover up her tax problems. Lila, you never mentioned IRS issues. It's not important, baby. What's important is that you protect our future together. If this investigation gets too deep, they might freeze all your accounts. Then how would you be able to help me finish paying off my grandmother's medical bills? There it was. The manipulation, clear as day. She wasn't worried about Daniel's welfare, she was worried about her money supply getting cut off. Daniel looked at Marcus, then at me. I could see the scales falling from his eyes. Lila, maybe I should come to Tennessee. We can figure this out together. No. Her response was too quick, too panicked. I mean, my aunt is very sick. The hospital has strict visitor policies. It's better if you stay in Ohio and handle the bank situation. Which hospital? Marcus whispered, already typing on his laptop. Daniel repeated the question. Which hospital is your aunt in? St. Mary's. I have to go now, they're calling for visitors to leave. I'll call you tonight, okay? And Daniel, remember what I said about the bank. Don't tell them anything about helping me. The call ended. We all stared at each other. Marcus looked up from his laptop. Dad, there's no St. Mary's Hospital in the area where she posted that picture. The closest one is 3 hours away. That's when my son finally broke. He put his head in his hands and started crying like I hadn't seen since his divorce years ago. She's been lying about everything, hasn't she? What happened next will shock you. Because just when we thought we had Lila figured out, she pulled a move that nearly destroyed what was left of our family. Don't stop watching now. Comment below if you've ever had to watch someone you love get deceived. Hit subscribe because the next chapter reveals Lila's most dangerous lie yet. Saturday morning brought a phone call that changed everything. Not from Lila, from a woman named Patricia calling from Georgia with a voice that could cut glass. Is this Daniel Johnson? She asked when I answered my phone. No, this is his mother. Who's calling? This is Patricia Williams. I believe your son has been sending money to my daughter. My blood turned to ice water. Your daughter? Lila Williams. Though she's been using her maiden name, Matthews, lately. I sat down hard in my kitchen chair. Ma'am, I think we need to talk. Within an hour, Patricia Williams was on a video call with me, Daniel, and Marcus. She looked tired, worn down, like a woman who'd been fighting a battle for years. Your son isn't Lila's first victim, Patricia began. He's not even her 10th. Daniel's face went pale. Victim? What are you talking about? My daughter has been running these romance scams since she was 19. She targets divorced men, usually with some money saved up, makes them fall in love, then takes everything she can get. Marcus leaned forward. How many men has she done this to? Patricia's voice cracked. Honestly? I've lost count. But I know about at least 30 over the past 8 years. Some lost their houses. One man lost his business. Another one tried to hurt himself when he realized what she'd done. Daniel looked like someone had slapped him. But she told me she'd changed. She said she found God and wanted to make things right. She tells everyone that, Patricia said sadly. Son, my daughter is sick. I've tried to get her help, but she's addicted to the thrill of manipulating people. And the money, of course. Why are you telling us this? I asked. Because I saw the bank transfers. Lila's been bragging about her Ohio boyfriend, who gave her enough money to buy a new car. When I found out she'd taken your retirement savings, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. The room went silent except for the sound of Daniel's heavy breathing. There's more, Patricia continued. Lila's not in Tennessee helping any sick aunt. She's in Atlanta with another man named Robert. She's planning to take his money and disappear to Mexico. Marcus jumped up. We have to call Detective Rodriguez. But Daniel held up his hand. Wait. Just, wait. He looked at Patricia through the screen. Why should I believe you? How do I know you're not lying too? Patricia's expression softened. Because I'm her mother, and I'm tired of watching her destroy good people. I've brought you proof. She held up a folder thick with papers. Bank statements showing deposits from dozens of different men. Police reports from 3 different states. Medical records showing she's never had any grandmother with medical bills. Medical records? I asked. The grandmother she claims needed surgery? That woman died when Lila was 15. Everything she's told you about family emergencies has been a lie. Daniel put his head in his hands. How much money has she stolen total? From everyone? Probably close to $500,000 over the years. The number hit us like a truck. $500,000. Stolen from men who thought they were helping someone they loved. But here's what really broke my heart, Patricia continued. Last month, Lila called me bragging about her Ohio project. She said she'd found a perfect mark, a divorced construction worker with retirement money and a trusting mother. Daniel's head snapped up. She called me a mark? She said you were the easiest target she'd ever worked. Quote, he's so desperate for love, he'd probably give me his kidney if I asked nice enough. I watched my son's face cycle through shame, anger, and heartbreak all at once. The woman he'd defended, the woman he'd given our life savings to, had been laughing about how easy he was to fool. There's one more thing, Patricia said quietly. Lila's pregnant. What? Daniel shot up from his chair. About 3 months along. But Daniel, the baby isn't yours. She's been with Robert in Atlanta for 4 months. She's planning to tell him the baby is his and get him to support both her and the child. Marcus looked at his father with concern. Dad, when was the last time you and Lila actually saw each other in person? Daniel thought about it, and I watched the realization hit him. 6 months ago. She kept saying she was too busy to visit, but we'd see each other soon. She's been stringing you along while building her relationship with Robert, Patricia explained. You were paying her bills while he was giving her a place to live. The manipulation was so complete, so thorough, that I felt sick to my stomach. This woman had played my son like a violin for months, taking our money while building a new life with someone else. What can we do? Daniel asked, his voice barely a whisper. Patricia's expression grew determined. We can stop her before she ruins Robert's life too. And maybe, if we work with the police, we can get some of your money back. But just as hope started creeping back into our hearts, Marcus's laptop started beeping with notifications. He checked his email and his face went white. Grandma, Dad, we have a problem. Lila just emptied 3 more accounts. Accounts we didn't even know Daniel had access to. My hands started shaking. How much more could this woman take from us? The story gets even more shocking from here. Because what Lila did next wasn't just theft, it was revenge. And it nearly cost us everything we had left. Share this video if you know someone who might be getting scammed. Comment below with your thoughts. How far would you go to protect your family? Subscribe because the next chapter reveals Lila's most vicious move yet. You think you know how low someone can go until they show you a basement you didn't know existed. That Sunday evening, while we were still reeling from Patricia's revelations, Lila launched an attack that nearly destroyed what was left of our family. It started with phone calls. My landline rang at 6 p.m., a man's voice I didn't recognize. "Ma'am, this is Officer Thompson with Columbus PD. We received a report that you're harboring stolen property and threatening to harm someone named Lila Matthews." My stomach dropped. "Officer, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Ma'am, we have documented evidence of threatening messages and claims that you're planning to make someone pay for taking money. We need you to come to the station for questioning." I looked at Daniel and Marcus, both staring at me with wide eyes. "Officer, someone has given you false information. I never threatened anyone. We also received reports that your grandson has been cyberstalking Ms. Matthews and attempting to hack her social media accounts." Marcus jumped up, grabbing the phone. "Sir, that's not true. We've been working with Detective Rodriguez in Savannah because she's a fraud suspect." "Son, I don't know anything about Savannah. I'm telling you what was reported to Columbus PD today." After the officer hung up, our house felt like a bomb had gone off. Lila wasn't just stealing money anymore, she was trying to get us arrested. "She's smart," Marcus said, though he looked scared for the first time since this whole mess started. "She's trying to make us look like the criminals before the real police can catch her." Daniel was pacing like a caged animal. "What if they arrest you, Mom? What if they arrest Marcus?" That's when my phone rang again. This time it was a woman claiming to be from Child Protective Services. "Mrs. Johnson, we received concerning reports about a minor in your household being exposed to illegal activities and used in harassment campaigns against adults." My heart nearly stopped. They were trying to take Marcus away. "Ma'am, my grandson hasn't done anything wrong. We've been cooperating with law enforcement to report fraud. We'll need to conduct a home visit this week to ensure the child's safety. Please have documentation ready proving this alleged cooperation with police." When that call ended, I sat down hard and felt my age for the first time in years. 73 years old, and someone was trying to paint me as a criminal and an unfit guardian. But Marcus, God bless him, wasn't backing down. "Grandma, this proves we're right about her. Why would she attack us if she wasn't guilty?" "Because she's desperate," I replied. "Cornered animals are the most dangerous." Daniel had gone quiet, staring out the window. Finally, he spoke. "I caused this. All of it. If I hadn't been so stupid, so blind." "Stop," I said firmly. "We don't have time for guilt right now. We need to prove our innocence and expose her lies." Marcus was already on his laptop. "I'm calling Detective Rodriguez. He can verify our cooperation and maybe contact Columbus PD." But when Marcus dialed, we got a recording saying the number was no longer in service. "That's impossible," Marcus said, trying again. "We just talked to him yesterday." A cold fear crept up my spine. "Marcus, call the Savannah Police Department directly. Ask for Detective Rodriguez." 20 minutes later, Marcus hung up with a pale face. "Grandma, there is no Detective Rodriguez in Savannah PD. There never has been." The room started spinning. We'd been talking to a fake police officer. Someone had set up an elaborate fake video call with a man pretending to be law enforcement. But the uniform looked real, Daniel said weakly. Anyone can buy a police costume online, I realized. And anyone can set up a fake background to look like a police station. Marcus was typing frantically. Guys, I think I know what happened. Lila probably has accomplices, people who help her run these scams. When she realized we were investigating, she had someone pose as a detective to make us think we were working with police. So we never actually reported her to real authorities? Daniel asked. No, I said, feeling sick. And now she's gotten to the real police first, making us look like the criminals. That's when our doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a police car in our driveway. Daniel looked at Marcus and me. What do we do? We tell the truth, I said, standing up straight. We show them everything we've discovered, and we let real police sort this out. But as I walked toward the front door, Marcus grabbed my arm. Grandma, wait. Before you open that door, I need to tell you something. I kept one piece of evidence hidden because I was scared you'd stop me from investigating. What evidence? I recorded every phone call Lila made to Dad over the past 2 weeks. Including one where she talked about bleeding the old man dry and moving on to bigger fish in Atlanta. My heart jumped. You recorded her confessing? More than that. I recorded her talking to someone else, probably her accomplice, about how they were going to frame the family if we got too close to the truth. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. Marcus, please tell me you have those recordings saved somewhere safe. He smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from him in days. Grandma, I'm 13, not stupid. I sent copies to 3 different email accounts and uploaded them to a cloud storage account she can't access. As I reached for the doorbell, one thought ran through my mind. This young man was about to outsmart professional criminals and possibly save our entire family. But what the police officer told us at our front door made this whole situation even more complicated than we'd imagined. Are you still with us? Because what happened when I opened that door proved that truth really is stranger than fiction. Like this video if you're invested in our family's story, and subscribe because the next chapter changes everything you think you know about this case. The police officer standing at my door wasn't what I expected. She was young, maybe in her 30s, with kind eyes and a clipboard that looked official but somehow different. Mrs. Johnson? I'm Detective Lisa Chen with the Ohio Attorney General's Financial Crimes Unit. I believe you've been trying to report a fraud case involving someone named Lila Matthews. My knees almost gave out. Detective Chen, we've been so confused. Someone told us there was a warrant out, then Columbus PD called saying we were in trouble. Ma'am, may I come in? I think there are some things you need to know about what's really been happening here. We all gathered in my living room, me, Daniel, and Marcus. Detective Chen opened her folder and pulled out photographs that made my heart race. These are surveillance photos from a gas station in Tennessee, taken yesterday morning. She showed us pictures of Lila, but she wasn't alone. She was with a man who looked exactly like the fake Detective Rodriguez we'd been video chatting with. This is Thomas Bradley, Detective Chen explained. He's Lila's partner in crime. They've been running romance scams together for 3 years. While Lila targets the victims, Thomas poses as law enforcement to confuse family members who get suspicious. Marcus leaned forward. So when we thought we were reporting her to police, you were actually talking to her accomplice, Detective Chen confirmed. They've used this tactic before. Family members think they're cooperating with an investigation, when really they're being fed false information to keep them quiet. Daniel looked confused. But what about the Columbus PD calls? The child services threats? All fake. Thomas has been making those calls using voice-changing software and spoof numbers. They wanted to scare you into backing off while Lila finished extracting money from other victims. I felt anger building in my chest like steam in a kettle. Detective, how did you find us if we never actually reported this to real police? Because someone else did. She smiled and looked at Marcus. Young man, you're pretty clever with computers, aren't you? Marcus blushed. I guess. When you uploaded those phone recordings to cloud storage, they were automatically scanned by fraud detection software. The system flagged keywords related to financial scams and alerted our unit. My recordings helped catch them? Marcus asked, his eyes lighting up. More than helped. Those recordings are the strongest evidence we've collected in 3 years of trying to catch this duo. Lila's voice saying she's bleeding the old man dry, and Thomas discussing framing the family, that's conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and obstruction of justice. Daniel spoke up quietly. Detective, how much trouble am I in? I sent her nearly $60,000. Mr. Johnson, you're a victim, not a criminal. But I need to ask, did you send money to anyone else on Lila's behalf? She had me wire money to her cousin in Florida. About $12,000. Detective Chen nodded. That was probably another victim she was scamming simultaneously. We've seen this pattern. They use money from one victim to create fake emergencies for other victims. So I helped her steal from other people? Daniel's voice broke. Unknowingly, yes. But that's exactly why we need your cooperation to stop her from hurting anyone else. Marcus raised his hand like he was in school. Detective, what about the man in Atlanta? Robert? We've been in contact with him. Thanks to your evidence, we were able to warn him before he sent any money. He's cooperating with our investigation now. Relief flooded through me. At least we'd saved one person from Lila's lies. Here's what's going to happen, Detective Chen continued. We have enough evidence to arrest both Lila and Thomas. We've been tracking their location through their phone GPS, and we're coordinating with Tennessee and Georgia authorities. Will we get our money back? I asked. Some of it, hopefully. We've frozen several accounts connected to their operation. But Mrs. Johnson, I have to be honest, much of it was probably spent immediately. These criminals don't usually keep stolen money sitting in accounts. Daniel looked at me with guilt written all over his face. Mom, I'm so sorry. I destroyed our retirement because I was lonely and stupid. Before I could respond, Detective Chen surprised us all. Mr. Johnson, you weren't stupid. These are professional criminals who study human psychology. Lila specifically targets men who've been through divorce because emotional vulnerability makes people more trusting. You were grieving the loss of your marriage and hoping for connection. That's human, not stupid. Marcus nodded. Dad, remember what you used to tell me about bullies? It's not the victim's fault when someone chooses to be cruel. My grandson was using his father's own wisdom to comfort him. If that doesn't make you believe in the power of family, nothing will. There's one more thing, Detective Chen said. We need you to keep this investigation confidential for now. Lila and Thomas don't know we're onto them yet. If word gets out, they might run before we can make arrests. How long until you catch them? I asked. Could be days, could be weeks. But we will catch them. And when we do, your testimony will help ensure they face serious prison time. After Detective Chen left, our house felt different. Lighter somehow, like a storm had passed. We weren't victims anymore, we were witnesses helping to stop criminals. Daniel sat on my couch and really looked at Marcus for the first time in months. Son, you saved our family. If you hadn't been brave enough to investigate. We saved our family, Dad. All of us together. But you're 13. You shouldn't have had to handle adult problems. Marcus shrugged. Maybe not. But someone had to think clearly, and the adults were too emotional to see the truth. Out of the mouths of babes, right? But our celebration was premature. Because that night, we received a phone call that proved Lila had one final card to play, and it was her most dangerous move yet. You won't believe what she tried to do to get revenge on our family. Hit that like button if this story has you hooked, and subscribe because the final chapter reveals how a family torn apart by lies found their way back to each other. The call came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night, exactly 1 week after Detective Chen's visit. I was already in bed when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Johnson? The voice was shaky, desperate. This is Robert, from Atlanta. I think we need to talk. I sat up in bed, wide awake. Robert? What's wrong? Lila's gone. Completely vanished. But before she left, she told me some things about your family that don't make sense. I need to know the truth. Within minutes, I had Daniel and Marcus on a three-way call. Robert's story chilled us to the bone. Lila showed up at my door 3 days ago, crying and hysterical. She claimed your family had been threatening her life, that your grandson was some kind of computer hacker trying to destroy her reputation online. Marcus made a disgusted sound. She's still lying. That's what I'm starting to think, Robert continued. Because when I asked her to show me these threats, she couldn't produce any real evidence. Just vague claims about feeling unsafe. Robert, Daniel said quietly, how much money did you give her? A long pause. $38,000. My entire emergency fund. We all winced. Another family's security destroyed by Lila's lies. But here's the thing, Robert continued. After she left, I found something in my guest room. A notebook where she'd been keeping detailed records of what she called her projects. Your family was listed as Project Ohio, complete success. But there were 12 other projects listed, all with dollar amounts and target dates. 12 other families? I asked. At least. And get this. She had notes about her next targets. Men she'd been researching online, complete with their financial information, family details, and emotional vulnerabilities. Marcus spoke up. Robert, did you contact the police? I called Detective Chen after finding her card in the notebook. Apparently, you folks had already given them enough evidence to issue warrants. They arrested Lila and Thomas this morning in Tennessee. The relief that flooded through me was so intense I started crying. After months of stress, fear, and family conflict, it was finally over. They found over $180,000 in various accounts, Robert continued. Detective Chen said they'll be working to return money to all the victims. Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. Will we get our retirement back? Some of it. Maybe not all, but Detective Chen thinks your family will recover about $40,000. It's not everything, but it's something. Over the next hour, Robert told us about Lila's final days in Atlanta. How she'd become increasingly paranoid, checking her phone constantly, and making weird comments about people trying to destroy her happiness. She'd even asked Robert to drive her to Mexico, claiming they needed a fresh start together. The crazy part is, Robert said, right before she disappeared, she tried to convince me to withdraw all my money and flee with her. She said your family was working with dangerous people to frame her for crimes she didn't commit. Even at the end, she was manipulating, I said. But I remembered something my ex-wife used to say, when someone needs you to run from your family and friends, they're usually the problem, not the solution. So I told Lila I needed time to think about it. Marcus grinned. That's when she knew her con was blown. Exactly. She packed her bags and left while I was at work. Took my laptop, my credit cards, and about $300 in cash I had lying around. 3 weeks later, we got the call we'd been waiting for. Detective Chen's voice was cheerful when she rang that Wednesday afternoon. Good news, folks. Lila Matthews and Thomas Bradley both accepted plea deals. They're looking at 5 to 8 years in prison, and they've agreed to pay restitution to all victims. How much will we get back? Daniel asked. Your family should recover approximately $43,000. It's not the full amount, but it's more than we usually recover in these cases. $43,000. Not our full retirement, but enough to give us back some security and dignity. But you know what meant more to me than the money? Watching my son and grandson rebuild their relationship. Daniel started taking Marcus to his construction sites on weekends, teaching him about honest work and the value of earning money through sweat and skill. Marcus helped his father understand technology and online safety. They became a team again. "Mom," Daniel told me one evening while we were cooking dinner together, "I owe you an apology that's bigger than words can hold. You don't owe me anything except the promise to trust your family when we're trying to protect you." "I promise." "And Mom? Marcus is the smartest person I know. What he did, exposing Lila's lies, protecting our family, that took more courage than anything I've ever done." Marcus walked into the kitchen just as Daniel finished speaking. "Dad, you weren't weak for wanting love. You were just human. Grandma taught me that loving someone doesn't mean you stop thinking clearly." The three of us stood there in my kitchen, and for the first time in months, our house felt like home again. 6 months later, Daniel met a wonderful woman named Carol at his job site. She's a project manager with her own money, her own life, and no interest in anything except getting to know him slowly and honestly. They've been dating for 4 months now, and she always asks about Marcus and me. That's how you know someone's intentions are good. They want to know your family, not avoid them. Marcus, now 14, has been accepted into a special computer program at his high school. He wants to work in cybersecurity someday, helping people protect themselves from online scams. He says his experience with Lila taught him how criminals think. As for me, I learned that being protective of your family isn't the same as being controlling. Sometimes the people we love make mistakes, and our job isn't to prevent every mistake, it's to be there when they need help picking up the pieces. The money Lila stole forced us to change our retirement plans, but it didn't destroy our family. If anything, it made us stronger. We learned to communicate better, trust each other more, and recognize that love without wisdom is just vulnerability waiting to be exploited. Here's the life lesson I want you to take from our story. When someone asks you to choose between them and your family, choose your family. When someone asks you to keep secrets from the people who love you, that's a red flag bigger than Texas. And when a 13-year-old shows more wisdom than the adults around him, maybe it's time for the adults to start listening. Daniel still feels guilty about the money, but I remind him that Lila was a professional criminal who fooled dozens of good people. The shame belongs to her, not to us. Marcus has taught our whole family that age doesn't determine wisdom. Sometimes the youngest person in the room sees the truth most clearly because they haven't learned to ignore their instincts yet. And me? I learned that being a grandmother sometimes means being a detective, a counselor, and a warrior all at once. But mostly, it means never giving up on the people you love, even when they can't see danger coming. Lila Matthews is serving 6 years in federal prison. Thomas Bradley got 8 years for impersonating law enforcement. They're both required to pay restitution to their victims, though none of us expect to see much more money. But we got something more valuable than money back. We got our family. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Have you ever had to protect a family member from someone who didn't have their best interests at heart? Tell us in the comments below. Your stories matter, and they might help other families facing similar situations. Subscribe to our channel for more real American stories that prove truth really is stranger than fiction. And remember, when your gut tells you something's wrong, listen to it. When your family tries to warn you about someone, hear them out. And when a smart kid starts asking questions about the adults in their life, pay attention. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest truths. Thank you for following our family's journey from betrayal to healing. Your support means everything to us, and we hope our story helps you protect the people you love. Until next time, this is your storytelling family, reminding you that every ending is just a new beginning in disguise.